My name is Alina, and I am 30 years old. I grew up in Chicago with my older sister Julia, who is 32, and my parents. Throughout my life, I have always felt like the extra child, the afterthought in our family dynamic. Julia was perpetually the golden child, the one everyone adored and prioritized. She was labeled the pretty one, the smart one, the special one. I was merely the responsible one, the dependable one who would not make a fuss. That was their subtle way of communicating that I mattered less. My parents were not cruel people. They simply made it abundantly clear, through countless small actions, that Julia came first. I remember in middle school, when I worked tirelessly to win the regional spelling bee, I returned home clutching my trophy, heart swelling with pride, only to have my father barely glance up from his newspaper. My mother casually remarked, "That is nice, sweetie. But did you hear Julia got asked to the spring dance? Is that not so exciting?" The dismissal stung like salt in an open wound. High school proved even more challenging. When I made the varsity swim team as a freshman, a significant achievement, it coincided with Julia, then a senior, securing a lead role in the school play. My parents never attended a single swim meet. After an important competition, where I earned a first-place medal, I sat silently in the car as my father asked if I could drive Julia to her play rehearsal. I wanted to hurl the medal at him, but simply replied, "Sure." This pattern continued into adulthood, when Julia purchased her first house several years ago. My parents assisted with her down payment and closing costs. Yet when I mentioned needing help with unexpected car repairs, my mother said, "Oh, sweetie, perhaps you should budget better," as if one could budget for a transmission failure. Despite the obvious favoritism, I never harbored hatred toward Julia. I accepted this as our family dynamic. I believed we shared a bond, despite the imbalanced treatment. I thought she cared about me. Last week, I discovered how profoundly mistaken I was. The revelation began when I visited my parents' house to deliver paperwork my mother had requested, insurance documents she needed me to complete, because apparently, I am the only one capable of handling such matters. Upon entering, I found them in the living room, my mother on a speakerphone call. I paid little attention until I heard Julia's voice say, "Mom, Alina cannot find out about me and Jay. Jay, my husband." I froze as my mother responded, "Do not worry, sweetie. She will not. It is better this way. You have so much at stake." My father added, "Yes, let us not ruin your life over one mistake." My heart seemed to stop beating. My own sister, my husband, and my parents all knew about this betrayal. I felt as though someone had struck me in the stomach. Quietly, I backed out of the house and departed without retrieving the paperwork. I drove home in a daze, trying to comprehend what I had just heard. When I arrived home, Jay was lounging on the couch, as if everything were normal. I could not even look at him. I went directly to the bathroom and locked the door, sitting on the floor for what seemed like hours, contemplating my next move. Part of me wanted to confront him immediately. Another part wanted to drive to Julia's house for answers. But mostly I felt numb. For the next few days, I kept to myself. Jay repeatedly asked if something was wrong, but I could not speak to him. Every time I attempted to talk, I felt on the verge of tears or sickness. I could not even message Julia. The situation extended beyond the infidelity. It was betrayal from every direction. My sister, whom I trusted implicitly, and my parents, who should love me unconditionally, all knew yet chose to protect Julia's image rather than protect me. I spent considerable time driving aimlessly, attempting to formulate a plan. I did not want to confront them without evidence. What if they denied everything? What if they gaslit me? So I decided to wait for the right moment. Several days later, my mother called with uncharacteristic cheerfulness. "Alina, honey, can you help plan Julia's baby shower? she asked, as if she were not actively concealing Julia's affair with my husband. The realization hit me. Julia was pregnant, and I had no way of knowing if the baby belonged to her husband Nate or to Jay. The audacity of my mother asking me to plan this celebration was nearly comical. Rather than expressing my anger, I replied, "Sure, Mom, I would love to help." After that call, I was finished with self-pity. This situation had evolved beyond Julia sleeping with Jay. It was about all of them believing they could deceive me indefinitely. They were treating me like an oblivious fool who would smile and accommodate their deception. This infuriated me more than anything, but I knew an emotional outburst would accomplish nothing. Julia had always excelled at playing the victim, and I refused to give her that opportunity. If I wanted to confront them effectively, I needed irrefutable evidence. That night, after Jay fell asleep, I took his phone. Normally, invading someone's privacy would make me uncomfortable, but given what I had overheard, I felt no guilt whatsoever. I was uncertain what I sought, but discovery came quickly. Jay had created a folder labeled Receipts. Hardly subtle. Inside were photos of him with Julia. Some were innocent selfies, but others left no doubt about their relationship. One showed them at a hotel, Julia wearing a bathrobe, while Jay grinned triumphantly. Surprisingly, I did not cry. I stared at the images, methodically saving each one to my own device. My hands trembled, not from sadness, but from pure rage. How could they be so careless, so confident in my ignorance? I proceeded to examine his messages. A lengthy conversation thread between Jay and Julia contained inside jokes, expressions of longing, and plans for encounters. One message stood out painfully. Julia had sent a picture of a baby onesie with the caption, "Do you think Nate will like this?" The implication hit me forcefully. They were not merely having an affair. They were mocking Nate, lying to him, pretending everything was normal while this chaos unfolded. After saving the messages, I checked his email. Initially, I doubted I would find anything relevant. Who emails about extramarital affairs? Then I discovered a hotel booking confirmation from several months prior. The reservation was under his name, with a note about accommodations for 2 guests. The date aligned perfectly with a text from Julia about getting away for a weekend. And I captured screenshots of everything, every picture, message, and email, and forwarded crucial emails to myself to prevent any potential deletion. I would not allow them to evade accountability. Over subsequent nights, I continued investigating. I examined Jay's laptop, social media accounts, and old backups. In one forgotten photo folder, I found an image of him and Julia from a family barbecue 2 years earlier. They stood unusually close, with her hand resting on his arm. In retrospect, it appeared glaringly obvious, a sign I had been too blind to notice. I began scrutinizing Julia's social media as well. She documented everything online: brunches, shopping excursions, yoga sessions. At first glance, it all seemed innocent. Upon closer inspection, I noticed subtle clues. A cafe photo showing 2 coffee cups, but no companion. A hotel lobby picture captioned "Weekend Escape" without tagging Nate or any friends. The pieces formed a comprehensive picture of deception. They were not even being cautious. They assumed I was too obtuse to connect these dots. That was their greatest mistake. By week's end, I had accumulated extensive evidence: photographs, messages, emails, social media posts. It formed a puzzle illustrating their betrayal in vivid detail. I decided to also examine the social media of Julia's husband Nate. He rarely posted, but recent photos depicted a tired man, as if troubled by something. In one post, he wrote, "Life is full of surprises, not all of them good. Previously, I thought nothing of it, But now I wondered if he suspected something. I considered contacting Nate, but hesitated. What if he disbelieved me? What if he somehow participated in the deception? The last thing I wanted was to alert Julia before finalizing my plan. The final puzzle piece appeared when I stumbled upon a shared family online folder. Among old photographs and documents was a folder labeled Baby Shower Plans. Inside was a draft guest list for Julia's shower, with my name listed as event coordinator. I nearly laughed aloud. They expected me to coordinate a celebration for the woman sleeping with my husband. The sheer audacity was incredible. Then inspiration struck. The shower provided the perfect stage. Everyone would be present: Julia, Jay, my parents, Nate, friends, and extended family. This would not be a celebration. It would be a reckoning. Everything fell into place with remarkable clarity. My mother had unwittingly handed me the ideal opportunity. My plan extended beyond exposing Julia and Jay. I would force everyone to confront their actions, the lies, the betrayal, the facade of their perfect lives, and I would show no mercy. The first step in my plan was maintaining a facade of normalcy. I agreed to manage the baby shower like the dutiful sister everyone expected me to be. My mother was ecstatic, messaging me constantly with decoration ideas, themes, and catering suggestions. She even forwarded Pinterest board links, which was ironically amusing, considering the chaos I intended to unleash. I played the role perfectly, contacting Julia to ask about her color preferences for decorations. She replied wanting pink and gold for something classy, as if she understood the concept of class. I gave no indication I knew about her and Jay, keeping my responses brief, and claiming busyness prevented longer conversations. If she harbored suspicions, she revealed nothing. With the basic arrangements in place, I focused on implementing my true plan. Though I had saved all evidence on my phone, I needed a presentation method that would leave no room for denial. Initially considering printed materials, I realized this approach lacked sufficient impact. I wanted something unmistakable, undeniable, and impossible to ignore. Then I remembered the projector at our venue, a fancy community hall my parents had rented, complete with a giant screen and projection system. Perfect. I devoted hours creating a PowerPoint presentation. Ironically, the most effort I had ever invested in anything for Julia. The initial slides appeared harmless. Generic congratulatory messages and baby-themed graphics before transitioning dramatically. Subsequent slides displayed screenshots of Julia and Jay's text exchanges with timestamps, followed by the most incriminating photographs. I concluded with a brief video clip from their hotel room encounter. Though not explicit, Julia's statement, "Nate will never find out," conveyed everything necessary. Upon completing the presentation, I saved it to a USB drive and verified its functionality multiple times. I created backups on my phone and email as additional precautions. With the evidence prepared, I returned my attention to the party details, ensuring everything appeared flawless. To avoid arousing suspicion, I ordered elaborate decorations, arranged catering, and designed personalized party favors bearing Julia's name. My mother repeatedly expressed pride in my sisterly support, statements that nearly made me laugh aloud each time. The week preceding the shower felt surreal. Jay behaved normally, presumably believing I suspected nothing. Julia maintained her typical effervescence, messaging daily with questions about the celebration. My parents expressed their customary, excessive enthusiasm, constantly praising Julia's impending motherhood. I smiled and nodded, despite each word feeling like a deliberate slap. I maintained the charade perfectly. Their belief in my obliviousness served my purpose. On the morning of the shower, I arrived early to prepare the venue. guests began arriving, including Julia and Nate. She appeared radiant, like someone who believed herself untouchable. Nate looked exhausted, but attempted to maintain appearances. Jay arrived late, offering an apologetic smile, as if expecting me to be annoyed at his lack of assistance. I dismissed him casually, concealing my true thoughts. My cousin Clara appeared with her phone already recording for her Instagram followers. Though her constant documentation typically annoyed me, today it was providential. Her livestream would broadcast the impending revelation beyond just those present. As the party proceeded, I ensured everything ran smoothly. Guests laughed, ate, and complimented Julia's appearance. My parents circulated, practically glowing with pride. When speech time arrived, my mother spoke first, expressing pride in Julia and excitement about becoming a grandmother. Julia predictably teared up, reveling in the attention. Then came my turn. I took the microphone, drew a deep breath, and smiled. "Julia," I began, "you have always been the star of our family. Today, I wanted to give you something truly unforgettable." I approached the projector, inserted the USB drive, and pressed play. Initially, everything seemed normal. The first slide showed Julia and Nate from a vacation, something sweet and innocent to establish the mood. People smiled, nodded, and some applauded, anticipating a sentimental presentation. Julia gave me that practiced, grateful smile I had seen countless times. Then the second slide appeared. The room fell silent. The screen displayed a screenshot of Julia and Jay's text conversation. Nothing explicitly vulgar, just flirtatious messages about missing each other and anticipating their next meeting, but sufficient to cause uncomfortable shifting among the guests. Julia's smile froze as she glanced at me in confusion. Jay appeared utterly terrified. I continued without hesitation. The next slide revealed photos of Julia and Jay at a hotel. One showed them standing in the lobby, followed by Julia in a bathrobe, perched on a bed edge, smiling at shirtless Jay standing behind her. Whispers began circulating. "What is this?" Someone near the front muttered. "Is that Jay?" "That is not Nate, correct?" Julia's expression transformed from confusion to panic. She stood, reaching toward the projector, but too late. The next slide displayed a text exchange where Julia joked about Nate's obliviousness and the ease of maintaining their secret. "Alina," Julia's voice cut through the murmuring. "What is this?" I ignored her, focusing on the presentation as it continued. The next slide escalated the shock. The video of Julia and Jay in the hotel room. The room erupted in chaos. Nate leapt from his chair, his face contorted with shock and anger. "What is this?" he shouted, his voice echoing throughout the hall. Julia remained frozen, mouth open but speechless. Jay seemed desperate to disappear entirely. "Is this real?" Someone from the back questioned. "What is happening?" Clara's live stream continued capturing every chaotic second, her phone flooding with comments like, "This is wild," and "Someone stop the presentation." Party attendees began recording and messaging others. Julia finally found her voice. "Alina, stop this. What is wrong with you?" she yelled, her face flushed and voice breaking. I remained remarkably calm, taking the microphone. "What is wrong with me, Julia? Perhaps you should ask yourself that question. Sleeping with my husband? Truly? And you thought I would remain ignorant?" Gasps rippled through the audience. "Wait," Nate raised his hand. "What did you just say?" "You slept with Jay." He turned to Julia, his expression transforming from confusion to fury. "It is not what it appears," Julia stammered through tears. "I can explain." "Explain what?" Nate snapped. "That you have been involved with her husband? That requires quite an explanation, Julia." Jay attempted to stand, raising his hands placatingly. "Let us just talk about this," he suggested, voice trembling. His comment provoked my laughter. "Now you want to talk. You seemed uninterested in talking while sneaking behind my back." Julia turned to me desperately. "Alina, please, we are family. You did not need to do this publicly." "Family?" I glared at her. "You dare mention family now? Where was that family loyalty when you were involved with my husband? Do not attempt to make me feel guilty, Julia. You created this situation." My parents, who had remained eerily silent, finally intervened. My mother stood, regarding me with horror. "Alina, enough. You have made your point. This is inappropriate." "This is precisely appropriate," I countered. "You have been covering for her consistently, have you not? I know you were aware of Julia and Jay. Instead of informing me, you helped conceal her secret. What kind of mother does that?" My father attempted to interject, but Nate interrupted. "You knew," he accused my parents. "You knew Julia was cheating and said nothing." "It is not like that," my mother responded, flustered. "We were trying to protect." "Protect whom?" I interrupted. "Julia, because it certainly was not me." The room descended into chaos. Guests whispered. Phones buzzed constantly. My parents attempted to calm Nate while Julia stood crying. Jay had quietly moved toward the rear exit, clearly attempting escape. "Where are you going?" I called to him. Everyone turned as Jay froze halfway to the door. "Alina, he began, but I cut him off. "You cannot just walk away from this. You cannot pretend you did not destroy our marriage. You and Julia deserve each other. I am finished with both of you." With that, I handed the microphone to a stunned staff member and walked out. The chaos continued behind me. As I reached my car, Clara caught up breathlessly, phone still recording. "That was incredible, Alina. People online are going crazy. The live stream is trending." "Good," I replied, closing my car door. "Let everyone know what they did." I drove away, leaving the wreckage behind. The aftermath unfolded rapidly. I ignored calls from my parents and pathetic texts from Jay, asking to talk and claiming I was being unreasonable. His desperation actually amused me rather than angering me. Unexpectedly, I received a message from Mia, one of Julia's closest friends. "Can we talk about Julia? I saw what happened at the shower." After hesitation, I agreed. When we spoke, Mia's voice trembled. "I think Julia might have been involved with my husband Dan too. I barely knew Dan, always perfectly groomed with a perpetual smirk. But at this point, Julia's additional indiscretions hardly surprised me." Mia explained the signs. Dan's defensive behavior regarding Julia, catching him texting her under the contact name Jay, and other suspicious patterns. "Check his phone," I advised firmly. "If Julia betrayed me with Jay, she would certainly pursue another woman's husband. You probably already know the truth." The next morning, my phone showed numerous missed calls and messages from Mia. "Call me ASAP. I cannot believe this." It is true. When I returned her call, she dissolved into tears. I found everything: texts, photos, emails. Julia and Dan have been involved for months. And worse, he might be the father of her baby. Though unsurprised by Julia's behavior, confirmation still infuriated me. "What will you do?" I asked. "I evicted him last night," she sobbed. I could not even look at him. When confronted with the texts, he had no defense. I demanded divorce, and he offered no resistance. "Good for you," I affirmed. "You deserve better." Mia shared more discoveries, including a text where Julia sent Dan a baby onesie photo with the message, "Cannot wait to see if it resembles you or Nate." Her audacity was breathtaking. Not merely cheating, but flaunting it. The revelation about Julia's baby, possibly being Dan's, accelerated the collapse of her carefully constructed life. Nate acted immediately, evicting her the night of the shower and filing for divorce. He blocked her number and announced their separation on social media with the pointed statement, "Starting fresh." Jay attempted maintaining a low profile. Moving into my parents' house where Julia was staying, two conspirators on a sinking vessel, my parents predictably welcomed them, protecting Julia from consequences as always. However, even Jay could not endure long. A mutual friend reported that he and Julia were fighting after discovering her involvement with Dan. Jay, hypocritically indignant about being cheated on, packed his belongings and departed, leaving Julia weeping on my parents' sofa. This news prompted extended laughter from me. The absurdity of Jay, who betrayed me for months, expressing outrage at Julia's betrayal, seemed almost poetic. Julia now found herself isolated. Nate rejected her. Jay abandoned her. Dan ignored her desperate voicemails about their future. Her carefully cultivated world of admirers had vanished. My parents maintained appearances, pretending normalcy, despite whispers in their social circle. My mother called hoping to reconcile, claiming, "We are still family, and we were trying to keep peace." "That is not peace," I retorted. "That is enabling. And now you expect me to forget everything? Impossible." Julia spiraled publicly. Friends reported she attempted deleting her social media accounts, but screenshots of her indiscretions had already spread widely. Even her closest friends distanced themselves. Natalie, once inseparable from Julia, confided, "I cannot believe she would do that to you, and to Mia. What kind of person behaves that way?" The final revelation came weeks later when Julia gave birth. Nate demanded a paternity test before signing any documentation. The results confirmed the baby was Dan's. When Mia informed me, I nearly fell from my chair. "Nate called personally," she explained. The test was conclusive. He told Julia he is permanently finished with her. I could only imagine Julia's expression upon receiving these results. Having lost Nate, Jay, and Dan, she now faced raising a child alone, with no one to blame but herself. My divorce from Jay was finalized weeks after the shower. A surprisingly straightforward process, given the emotional damage. Jay offered no resistance, whether from guilt or eagerness to proceed. I contacted an attorney immediately after the shower, unwilling to waste time or allow Jay to believe reconciliation was possible. "You are making the right decision," my lawyer assured me. "People like Jay do not change." The property division proceeded smoothly. No children complicated matters, and our recently purchased house would be sold with proceeds divided equally. Jay attempted claiming various belongings, but I conceded everything material. To expedite his departure from my life, the emotional aspect proved most challenging. Signing those papers represented both an ending and beginning. The death of a relationship I once believed permanent, yet liberation from lies. After years allowing Jay's deception and Julia's manipulation to define my reality, I could finally reclaim my identity. The day my divorce finalized, I discarded everything reminding me of Jay. Photographs, clothing, even his favorite coffee mug. This ritual represented purging negativity from my space. Surprisingly, relief came swiftly. For the first time in months, perhaps years, I no longer carried the burden of his deception. My modest apartment felt more like home than the house we had shared ever did. Ultimately, everything Julia constructed, her perfect life, her deceptions, her manipulations, collapsed entirely. And as I watched from a distance, I felt something unexpected. Neither bitterness nor satisfaction, but profound gratitude. For in exposing their lies, I discovered an unexpected truth about myself. Throughout my life, I believed being overlooked made me somehow less valuable. Now I realized being underestimated had become my greatest strength. They never saw me coming because they never truly saw me at all. 3 months after the shower, I received a job offer in Seattle, an opportunity to direct environmental conservation projects along the Pacific Northwest coast. My dream career that I had abandoned years ago when Jay convinced me it was impractical. I accepted immediately. As I packed my apartment, preparing for this new chapter, I found an old photograph from childhood, Julia and me building sandcastles at Lake Michigan. Before the competition, before the betrayal, when we were simply sisters. For a moment, sadness washed over me for what could have been. Then my phone chimed with a message from my new employer. The team cannot wait to meet you, Alina. Your leadership is exactly what this project needs. I placed the photograph in a box, labeled past, and sealed it closed. The future awaited, and this time, I would be the author of my own story. The end. Please like and subscribe for more. Thank you.